Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Ventura TV. I'm Sandra Siepak. On today's show, we'd like to welcome Dr. Tina Sadarangani. She is a PhD and also with the website Caremobi. We're going to talk about caregiving and seniors today and how caregivers and seniors can prepare in the wake of California wildfires and natural disasters, how to better prepare before something happens. So we'd like to introduce Dr. Tina Sadarangani, and she is a board certified adult and geriatric nurse practitioner. And she also specializes in long-term and cognitive care. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Sandra, thank you so much for having me. And first of all, just in the context of all of this, I want to express my, heartfelt thoughts and wishes to all the people in California who are dealing with the enormity and the aftermath of what has been, unprecedented disaster. And even as we talk today about preparedness and preparing for the
Yes.
next event, I think in many ways it would be hard for any of us to, even with the best of advice, have prepared for this situation. So, thoughts and wishes to all of those affected, and real gratitude to the firefighters who continue to risk their own lives, safety, and health to put these out and restore a sense of normalcy, which, I hope we'll be able to achieve at some
Yes.
point.
It's been a very challenging time for all of us here in California, especially in the Los Angeles area. Things have been very difficult to deal with for so many people, and many seniors have been displaced now and have lost their homes. So we would like to hope that we could give people a lot of tips and advice for the future. So I think, what we'd like to really cover is for caregivers, especially here in the Ventura and Los Angeles area, who support a lot of elderly and chronically ill loved ones, who may be in a situation again someday where they have to evacuate quickly. And in that respect, we'd like to have people better prepared. So I'd like to turn it to you and start giving a little bit of a plan or advice that you could share on how we go ahead and be better equipped for all this.
Absolutely. And I think some of this advice, can be used in the context of an emergency evacuation, but also really in terms of any emergency in which you're going to have
Yes.
to pivot. And that happens when you're a caregiver and when you're dealing with somebody who's living with a serious or chronic illness. We One of the things all caregivers know is that they have to be prepared to pivot and go quickly. And so that's really what a lot of these points are about today. I want to make a comparison as I provide advice to people that if you've ever had the experience and privilege of having a child and being pregnant with one, the doctor will always tell you by around month 8, have that bag packed for the
That's
hospital.
right.
And we're with, because you don't know whether it's going to be in the middle of the
Right.
night and you don't know what's going to happen, but you want to be prepared. And I know so many, women who go through this and they're so grateful. They're just so prepared. They have everything. They have their life's work in this bag ready to go.
Right.
I want all caregivers when we don't have that similar preparedness.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety. There's chronic, declines, and then there's unexpected declines in people that we take
Mhm.
care of as we're older. But that doesn't change the fact that we need to exercise the same level of preparedness. And we really need the first piece of advice is around prepping that go bag. Always, whether there's an alert or not.
Right.
We just never know what the world is going to bring.
Sure.
And so a couple of those things really should start with your medical necessities. So a 30-day supply of medications. This is absolutely critical. You should have this always. You never know if your
Right.
pharmacy, there's going to be a drug shortage, if there's going to be a wildfire, whatever it is, you should always have a 30-day supply of the medications that you're taking on hand with you.
Okay.
Um, Making sure that devices, that portable oxygen tanks or nebulizers, if that's something that's relevant, and also the devices you might be using at home, if you're using a blood pressure cuff, a glucose meter, different things, because you just do not know what situation you're going to find yourself in. And if you are dealing with somebody who has medically complex needs, remember, in all of these situations, healthcare resources are overrun. The staff, the nurses, the doctors, they're all living in the same situations that
Yes.
you are, and these facilities may be short-staffed. So I always encourage people to have the supplies they need on hand, but more importantly, the lists, the prescriptions, the medical history, the documents. You mentioned CareMobi. CareMobi is
Yes.
a completely free mobile application that we created with support from the National Institutes of
Right.
Health for caregivers. It's freely available in the App Store. It's completely secure, and it encourages family caregivers to have a place to keep a list of medications, doctors' names, healthcare providers' numbers, appointments, medical history, documents, all the things that are involved in their care. It is so
Because, you
important.
know, the important papers that you need, you know, in the event you have to flee quickly, and many of us have, you need that to back up whatever you may need in the future days ahead, should you be displaced from your home. So it's crucial. It's very important. What about things like medical devices? I mean, there's a lot of people who rely on medical equipment. So it's really important to have that also maybe in the car or something you can grab quickly.
Exactly. And we saw this in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene in North
Right.
Carolina, where many people were out of dialysis supplies because
Yes.
the do at-home dialysis because the
Right.
factories were compromised. So yes, we papers, of course, prescriptions, things, certain things can be digitized, but your supplies cannot be. And so having an adequate, 30-day or minimum 2 week, but I really encourage
Okay.
people to have a 30-day supply of all
Right.
of those things on hand, and digitizing all that paperwork that you just talked about is so key.
Right. And now another thing is we're dealing with a lot of smoke here. So the N95 masks were so very vital and important to a lot of people. And not just those that are a little bit older, but even the younger people. The smoke was so bad. That's something I think people need to keep on hand.
Yes, and I think so definitely the N95 masks,
Right.
particularly if you have an older adult with a respiratory condition, but many older adults, as you know, are prone to respiratory conditions. They
Yes.
develop pneumonia much more
Hmm.
easily. So having those on
Yeah.
hand is absolutely critical. I also recommend, you have air purifiers on hand, but these are things that if you
Okay.
are caring for an older adult, you should absolutely just have on the regular, as when you think about your plan and where am I going to go in the
Right.
event of
Right.
this. Not many people have that luxury of
No.
having a place to go. However, as you think about that, is it the evacuation shelter? Is it the local, school? Is it a family member? Is it somewhere 200 miles away?
Yes.
Wherever it is this individual who's immunocompromised going to be able to be indoors with windows and doors sealed when air quality is hazardous? Are we thinking about that? And what is our plan around that? And so, even portable purifiers, and conducting some air quality monitoring is so critical for the health of this population, particularly in California.
Right. It is important to have, you know, all that in place and know where you're going because in the event that you are evacuated, you're so stressed and you're trying to get everything together at the last minute. And it's very difficult when you're also trying to take care of an elderly person who may also have some chronic conditions that you have to be very aware of, and care for them as well. So I think that's why, as you're saying, everything in place before this happens may really help all of us.
Yes, and I want to encourage caregivers.
Right.
Unfortunately, caregivers play many roles, many that they never signed up for, and many that they may not even be trained to do. And,
Right.
and we salute them and recognize that work. In the post-wildfire world, but really after any natural disaster, there's
Yes.
always implications for health, and particularly in this instance with the likelihood of respiratory complications and training ourselves to look for signs. Is there a prolonged cough, bronchitis? Are you seeing mental health changes, in particularly people with cognitive impairment, which is a population I deal with? Are you noticing increased confusion, delirium? Are they feeling more lonely and isolated? So we really have to keep an eye out for these things,
Yes.
because yes, they affect all of us who are living in the wake of these disasters, but the impacts on this population may be more profound, and the degree of preparedness we have can help us address them.
Right. Right. I think, and I'll just bring this up real quick. In adding to the things that you should grab in your bag, I found that in an evacuation, two things were so really important: having a really good flashlight, and also a portable radio. Because when the power goes out, and when you lose power, as we all did for about 3 and 4 days at a time, you can't turn the TV on. So having a portable radio really gives you a lot of insight as to what's going on and what's being done out in the community. So those are some important things to add maybe to your bag as well.
Absolutely. And let's not forget, non-perishable food items,
Oh,
especially if
yeah.
you have a loved one who has special dietary needs. I mean, as you all have experienced
Right.
that, nobody's going to be able to cater to this
Right.
need and that need in the wake of a disaster. We're just
Right.
lucky if we get anything. So, especially if you have dietary sensitivities, having things on hand that address those needs is so critical. Foods that are rich in protein, nutrition supplements like Ensure, those things tend to be in very short supply in the wake of disasters. And I
Right.
can't encourage caregivers enough to stock up while they can.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the strategies for all the support and being prepared as a caregiver, as a senior who's being evacuated, all of this can make such a difference in your future days ahead, should you need a lot of things that you can't get from your home,
Yeah.
which is what has happened here. And I think a lot of people will learn from this and will be better prepared for the future. And all of this is such essential, important information to be better prepared in the wake of an evacuation. So
Right.
I'm
I want
hoping many, many seniors and their caregivers can find this to be very helpful for them.
I also want to add a couple of other things that we, didn't get to touch on, which are so important. We talked about the food and water, but also really change of clothes, extra
Right,
eyeglasses, hearing aids. Like these things are going to be so important, very hard to come by if lost. Making sure you have batteries because all these devices, these portable
right.
devices that we talk about, your phone charger, I'd say to digitize everything, but if your phone is dead, that's lost too. So keeping that. And then personal hygiene items, always having a stock of, toothbrush, wipes, adult diapers, incontinence products.
Yes,
Again, all of this becomes very hard to access. And I think despite all the goodwill and efforts to help populations, we often forget about these needs of older adults when we're thinking about collection and
very
drives.
good. Well, I must say, so a lot of this is going to help many, many people in the future days ahead. And we really would like to thank you, Dr. Tina Sadarangani, for all your helpful advice and tips for many of our caregivers and elderly people out there who may need to have a little bit more advice for being prepared and getting through these tough days. This was not an easy experience for so many people. So we want to make things a lot easier in the future.
Well, I so appreciate you having me on and bringing attention to the needs of such an important population who's often forgotten during these evacuations and natural disasters, who have such special needs around function and mobility. I love being on with you, and I again extend my
Great.
heartfelt thoughts to everybody affected.
Well, thank you again. And thank all of you for joining us today on Our Ventura TV. We look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Sandra Siepak. Bye, everyone.